What if I told you there was one little tweak you could make in your parenting that would significantly lower your level of frustration when your kids do something really stupid? In today's video, I'll share some information that can completely change the way you feel about your kids being total dummies. There's a scenario that plays out countless times every day across the globe, and it goes something like this. An otherwise intelligent young person does something incredibly stupid, the consequences of which were glaringly obvious. A frustrated adult who needs to deal with this situation asks the age-old question, "What were you thinking?" The equally exasperated young person responds in the way that every parent has heard, "I don't know." Unfortunately, everybody comes out of this scenario very frustrated. The parent is upset because it's incomprehensible that this otherwise smart kid couldn't see the obvious outcome of what it was they were doing. What many adults don't realize is that the kid is equally as frustrated with themselves because they really don't know what it was that they were thinking. I vividly remember an experience I had when I was 12 years old. A friend and I were walking to our weekly Boy Scout meeting. Now that tells you the type of child I was. I was actively involved in Scouts, I was a good kid, and tried to do the right things. But as we were walking down a somewhat rural street towards the meeting place, we happened upon a cardboard box full of glass bottles that somebody had dumped on the side of the road. Now one of us, I can't remember if it was me or if it was my friend, decided it would be a great idea to take one of those bottles, throw it up as high as we could, and see what happened when it hit the ground. So we did so, and it was spectacular. The explosion of glass when it hit the pavement was amazing. We were enthralled, and we had an entire box full of glass bottles to use. So one by one, we tossed those bottles up, we watched them explode, and we were loving it. And I remember vividly the point when we started seeing a car come down the road towards us. And then we looked at the shattered glass in the road, and we looked at the car, and then we looked back to the glass, and then we looked at the car, and we ran. Because in that moment we realized we had just shattered an entire cardboard box full of glass bottles in the middle of the street. Now, as luck would have it, that car was being driven by an off-duty police officer who, as you would expect, followed the two 12-year-olds who were running away in order to find out what on earth they had been thinking. My friend and I were close to the church building where we were having our meeting, and so we ran directly there. Naturally, that police officer caught up to us very quickly, just as we were walking in the door and meeting with our Scout leaders. The officer let our Scout leaders know what we had done, and then together they contacted our parents to have them come down to the church building to help deal with the situation. Each one of these groups of adults asked the very same question, what were we thinking? I remember the feeling of frustration when I tried to figure out what it was that I had been thinking. Obviously, you can't blow up a bunch of glass bottles in the middle of a road and expect good things to come from it. But it hadn't even crossed my mind in the moment that I was acting on those impulses. But I did have plenty of time to think about it as I was standing out in the road with a broom and a dustpan to clean up all the glass that I had thrown out, under the watchful eye of an off-duty police officer, some upset Scout leaders, and very unhappy parents. Now luckily, there's a really good explanation for all of this frustration that comes to us courtesy of developmental biology. It won't surprise anybody to learn that human babies are not born with fully developed brains. It takes months before human babies can do anything for themselves, and years before they start acting like a real person. The reason for this is because of our freakishly large heads. Humans have the largest brains of any mammal when compared to the size of our bodies. If we were to wait for our brains to be fully developed, we would never be able to fit through the birth canal at the time we need to be born. As a result, humans have developed in such a way that our babies are born before we have those fully developed brains. That means that our brains need to continue developing as we continue to grow and are nurtured. Now, forgive me, but it's necessary to talk a little bit about functional anatomy in order to make this make sense. As the brain continues to develop as we age, it generally follows a path from the back, up, and forward. Breathing, heart rate, and swallowing are some of the basic brain functions that are present at birth, and they're centered in the brain stem, which is located in the lower back part of the brain. Improved motor control, the ability to understand language, the ability to speak language, are all skills that are developed as the brain is developing and growing up and forward. Following that path of development up and forward, the very front part of the brain, right behind our forehead, is the last part that reaches maximum efficiency in doing the job it was designed to do. The prefrontal cortex, that area of the brain right behind our forehead, is designed to handle complex tasks, including doing things like determining cause and effect. So what we understand from developmental biology is that the last part of the brain to fully develop and be able to function is the part of the brain that helps us to understand if we do A, B is likely to be the outcome. And here's the real kicker. That part of the brain, the part of the brain that we need in order to understand cause and effect, does not fully develop until the mid-20s. According to the law and within our society, we typically consider 18 to be the age of adulthood. But biologically speaking, that's just not accurate. I got married when I was 24 years old. For our honeymoon, we planned to drive up the coast of California, and I thought it would be a great idea to rent a nice car rather than just taking my old beat-up Toyota Corolla for the trip. Unfortunately, when I started calling around to the different rental companies to find out how much that would cost, I was told that they wouldn't rent to a 24-year-old. You had to be at least 25 years old in order to rent their vehicles. I never understood why that was the case until I learned about this developmental biology concept. Young people do stupid things without thinking about the consequences. If I were a rental car company owner, why would I want to rent my car to people who are likely going to make bad choices that would end up damaging my product? Although rental car companies probably aren't even aware of this developmental biology fact, they have learned through their experience that when they rent their vehicles to people younger than the age of 25, bad choices are frequently made, which ends up costing them money. In the end, it makes more sense to their bottom line that they not even rent to younger people rather than running the risk of bad decisions being made with their cars. When money is on the line, the businesses have decided it's better to be safe than sorry. That being the case, I kind of have to ask myself, why do we let 16-year-olds drive? Why do we let 18-year-olds vote? And why on earth do we let 21-year-olds drink? What this means for your parenting is that your 6-year-old, your 16-year-old, and yes, even some 26-year-olds won't be able to explain to you what it was they were thinking when they decided to do whatever ridiculous thing they did. So you can ask if you want, but chances are you're never going to get an answer that makes any sense. The adolescent brain has not yet developed the ability to consistently see cause and effect. Now, I emphasize the word consistently. This doesn't mean that they can't do it at all. I'm not suggesting that there's an empty space behind their forehead. It's there, it's just not fully developed yet. That means that they're not able to consistently see the cause and effect results the same way an adult would be able to see them. The thing that's incredibly frustrating for you and for them is that after they've acted, after they've done whatever it is that they did, they'll be able to see all the reasons they shouldn't have done whatever it is that they did. You thinking that they should have been able to see those consequences before they acted is the same as expecting them to sprout wings and fly. You can expect it if you want, but it's just not realistic. Now, it's vitally important that we focus in on this next point. Parents sometimes mistakenly believe that when I'm telling them that children can't consistently see cause and effect, that I'm somehow suggesting that they should be immune from the consequences of their action. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Boundaries and consequences are incredibly important to children precisely because they cannot see the cause and effect of their actions. Because your children don't yet have the ability to consistently see the outcomes that can come from their actions, you as the adult need to lay out clear and exact boundaries for appropriate behavior. When those boundaries are crossed, there need to be clear consequences that match the offense. Consequences are the way that your children will develop the ability to think like an adult and start to consider the things that will happen as a likely outcome of their actions. I'm sure I'm not alone as a mental health professional in having a lot of experiences with individuals who have gotten into legal trouble as the result of making bad choices that come from not learning consequences as a child. You as an adult are in a position to help your children start to learn that the things they do have consequences, both good and bad. Failing to teach that lesson when they're young can lead to significant problems in their future. So what's the point of learning all of this about the adolescent brain and its development if we still need to bring the hammer down when our children do dumb things? That's a fair question. The point is, you need to protect your own sanity. Don't make the mistake of allowing yourself to get frustrated and angry when your children make ridiculous choices. That's what children do. There's no need to worry or get upset or try to figure out what sort of therapy they need when they make choices without thinking about the consequences. So here's what I would recommend you do instead of allowing yourself to get upset and angry. First, remember the times when you were young and you did incredibly stupid things without knowing what you were thinking. We all have stories like the one I shared about breaking those glass bottles in the road. Think back to when you did something similar and the way it felt to be so frustrated with yourself for not thinking about the outcomes. Then, allow yourself to feel sorry for your child when you have to lower the boom to help them learn consequences. You'll soon realize that allowing yourself to feel sorry for your child is a lot more pleasant than getting angry or frustrated. And speaking of likely outcomes that come from our actions in the moment, I would love for you to stop and consider how you can continue receiving more of this important information. By taking a moment right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications, you'll be helping me to continue to produce this information and make these videos in an effort to help you in the future. If you're looking for more information like this to protect your mental health and improve your parenting skills, take that action right now to make it more likely that that information will be waiting for you when you need it. And that brings us to the 3-2-1 for this video. 3 things that I think are really important as takeaways from this message. 2 minutes for yourself to sit and think about how you can use this information to improve your parenting and your own mental health. And then finally, selecting one thing that you're going to do starting today to practice and improve in this area. For the 3 important takeaways, we first need to remember that children are not just little adults with the ability to think and reason out the way adults do. Even many young adults are not yet fully capable of doing everything that a more mature adult is able to do as far as it goes with seeing and understanding consequences of actions. Second, parents need to remember that while children can see cause and effect and understand consequences when they stop to think about it, they will not be able to do so consistently when they're in the actual moment. Finally, the third thing that I'd like you to take away from today's video is the idea that you as the parent need to act as that prefrontal cortex for your children. Since they don't have the ability to consistently understand cause and effect with their actions when they're in the moment, you need to establish clear boundaries and expectations for the way they need to behave. When those boundaries are crossed, you need to make sure that there are consequences that will help them to learn and understand and develop that frontal cortex so they can do it for themselves when they're older. Now, I'd like you to take a couple minutes, whether it's by pausing the video in this very moment or by taking a couple minutes later in the day, to sit with your own thoughts and think about how you can use this information to improve yourself and to improve your parenting. Once you've taken those 2 minutes, I then would love for you to select just one thing that you'll be working on starting today and share with me in the comments what it is that you'll be doing. As an incentive, as always, I will be selecting at least one person from the comments to make contact with and follow up with them to see if there's anything I can assist with. Can I help or coach in any way that will make it more likely that they'll be able to succeed in the thing they've selected? And that brings us to the end of today's video. You've got homework to work on, so I'm going to let you get to it. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video today. If you haven't already, make sure that you go over to our channel homepage to look and see what information we've got that also might be relevant to your needs as a parent. There may be things that you need in your own life to improve your well-being and mental health, or there may be things that you need to do as a parent to improve the functioning of your family. Either way, we've got loads of information waiting for you.